Welcome to the girls. On today's show, we have a very special guest for you who's going to let you know that you're being at the bottom of your totem pole list with having everybody in the world ahead of your list on all the things you have to do, especially with our upcoming season, the holidays rolling upon us. She's going to help us get our life in order, right, Lori?
That's right. I'm very excited because I know I can use some help, especially this time of year. So we have Dr. Christine Kiesinger with us today. She's a communication specialist and an integrative wellness educator. She has over 2 decades of experience working with individuals in this line. So this is really exciting.
I'm excited about it because I know with the change of season, like I mentioned, we not only change, we have to winterize the house, then we have all the decorations, and I don't know about you, but when I watch those Hallmark movies and they start dragging out all the Christmas stuff, it's like it's not even Halloween yet, and I'm looking at my husband going, oh my God, I have to write my Christmas cards. Right. I have to get the tree up. I have to just, they put me in a panic.
Yes, and I think too, you go out, you go shopping just for everyday things.
Right.
And everything is now Christmas, and it's just like, it's hurry up, and we have to just, what's that Christmas wish list and getting all that stuff together and the dinner and the decorating. There is a lot, and it's very overwhelming. It
is overwhelming, and we have to sort of like step back and take a look at the priority list, which I'm a list person. I don't know if you are, but from working with me when I had the store, I'd have the list, and every day, because I didn't know what end was up and what was going to happen, I had that list that we worked off of, and as we did something, we check it off, and then of course, every day we were adding to the bottom of that list, and every day we would go through and prioritize and try and do that. So I actually went for a colonoscopy that I was 4 years overdue for. So
good time to have it done.
Yeah, I went through like the whole prep and the whole thing, which everybody says is the worst part, and it is. And but thank goodness I have peace of mind because I went and I had that done. So what have you done for yourself lately?
Oh, that's a good question, and that's why this topic is so interesting to me, because my husband tells me all the time, I'm really good at taking care of others, but I really don't take time for myself. And I think a lot of times I don't, because I feel very selfish when I'm taking time for me, because I'm so worried about my husband, my daughter, my family, my work. So I do come last because I figure if everybody else is good, I'm great.
Yeah, that's what makes you feel content, right? Like
right.
You can go to bed at night, if everybody's healthy and everybody's peaceful, it doesn't matter that you need your nails done or, you have 15 appointments the next day that you don't know how you're going to get to them, but yes. As long as everybody else is good, that's like your main priority.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I know, we always have a problem with that, but we're going to take a break and come back because we'd like to introduce Dr. Christine to you. So stay with us, and I always say, call your friends because it's going to be a great show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the girls, and as promised, we have a special guest for you, Dr. Christine. And Dr. Christine, we're so very honored to have you here with us today. First of all, we know that you're very, very busy. You have that type of profession where I'm sure you must be on speed dial for a lot of people.
Right, yes, absolutely. But I'm happy to be here. This is one of my favorite topics.
Well, we're happy to be asking you a lot of questions. I know Lori has heard you speak at some of the different events that she was at. And Lori, didn't you actually have her with the Blind Association?
Yes.
The Community Services for Sight?
Yes, twice she has worked with our kids in our transition program, and she talked with them about small talk and social anxiety, which is another huge topic that I have great interest in. But when she and I were talking about this, the art of, exceptional self-care, and I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because again, I think women especially are not doing that. We think it's such a great idea, but we just don't do it. So Christine, tell us, how did you really get interested in this particular topic?
I was in my late 30s, and I was a mom. I married someone who was widowed with 2 babies, and I left a very, very full-time career as a university professor to come into this family to care for these children. And although I had all of the stresses that come along with being a mother of 2 toddlers, I had the additional stress of dealing with children who were grieving the loss of their biological mother. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had a long history as a yoga and meditation teacher, but now I had to walk my talk because I was starting to experience physical symptoms related to stress and the stress hormone just coursing through my body at all times. So I got to a point where I actually rolled my yoga mat out into the center of the living room, and I left it there at all times. It was sort of my home base. Whenever things began to get really out of control, I would sometimes go and just stand there until I calmed down.
Well, let me ask you, when you said that all of the symptoms started coming, what are some of the symptoms so that people who are watching know the signs of when it is time to reach out for some help?
The first thing that I would say, one of the key symptoms, and this encompasses a lot, is you begin to see accelerated signs of aging. And that will manifest first as chronic fatigue or exhaustion. No matter how much sleep you get, you wake up, you hear the alarm, and you think, this can't be possible. I am exhausted. The second thing that you start to notice is weight gain that seems to be unexplained. Even if you're watching your diet and even exercising, it's just weight gain that is unexplained. Immune system compromise. You're getting sick more often. Your bounce back time is briefer, or isn't as quick as it once was. Anxiety and depression, and it can be a very low level of anxiety and depression, and I always say anxiety and depression are the twin sisters. They always arrive together. Sure. Or it can be pretty profound levels of anxiety or depression.
So you're just like out of kilter.
Out of
your
kilter,
emotions.
yes. And then finally, hormonal imbalance. And many women will believe that, oh, I must be in perimenopause, and it's not true. It's hormonal imbalance that is linked to high degrees of stress that are not being managed.
Well, high degrees of stress release cortisol, a hormone.
Absolutely.
And so cortisol takes over the body and
Yes.
does a number on everything, right?
Yes, it does. It does. It keeps you in fight, flight, or freeze 24/7. And we are not meant to be in those states all the time, only when there's a true emergency.
So how did you address, you said you had your mat out at all times and you go and just stand there. Well, being a yoga instructor, you had some background as to what to do.
Yeah.
So tell us how you put that into play.
Well, I created a set of practices for myself that were very simple, things that I could do very, very easily, and even things that I could do in public if I was really panicked or freaking out. Things that did not involve lighting a candle or going to a yoga studio, practices that were very immediate that addressed what I believe are 5 key areas of a woman's life, right? There's your physical health and well-being. There's a woman's emotional world, right? And then there's this part of us, and I believe it's true of all human beings, it's the longing for creativity. And that will often be put to the side, you know, our creative stirrings, the things that we want to sort of give birth to creatively. And then, of course, there's our relational life, which suffers. And our relational life, I am forgetting the 5th one.
Well, we have so many different emotional, mental, we have
our
every
professional
asset.
worlds, our professional worlds.
Let's forget about the professions because we don't want to be
yes.
working.
So those are the 5 facets. So then I developed a set of practices that address each of those areas of a woman's life as a way of bringing her back to balance, because we're multifaceted creatures. You know, we are like the multifaceted diamond. And in order to feel full and in order to feel luminous and bright, all of those areas of our being have to be addressed.
And I think it's difficult too when you're stressed at home and then you have stress in that professional life, just trying to make it all, you don't know where to turn sometimes and what to do with it because it just starts to take over.
And that's when our professional lives kind of spill over into the home life, and the home life spills over into the professional life. And it's all intricately related. You know, if I'm not right in my physical body, my emotional well-being will suffer. If I'm not giving expression to my creative urges, my relationships will suffer. So they're all connected.
Well, don't you find in today's world as well, because of we have the internet and we have all kind of gadgets all the time that are at our disposal. We're so connected with the outside world that we're not connected inwardly. And sometimes what we're seeing out there, the perfect person on the the cover of a magazine that we always hear about, and now we know that they are, you know,
Airbrush.
touched up and airbrushed and whatever. Our lives aren't airbrushed. So more and more people are coming forward and telling us that, you know, there is no perfection in how we look. But we still try to keep up with everybody because you see your neighbor and they're doing this, and this, and they look so put together. And you're like, why can't I do that? Why is it that I'm so stressed? Why is it that I get? So we have like these high expectations that we put on ourselves. Why do we do that?
It's partially the way that we're socialized. You know, as women, we are, as you mentioned earlier, we are socialized into caregiving. I mean, we see it in the way that girls play. When girls get together to play, they are really focused on connection. How is everybody doing? Often if they're playing with certain toys like dolls, they're caregiving for the dolls. So the caregiver, nurturer part of us, we come into the world with. And so we think then, because it's part of our genetic makeup, it's part of our DNA to do that, we think then that that is who we need to be throughout the life course. And then we become the last person on the we're at the bottom of our totem pole. You know, we are not addressing our own needs. And I think the real wake-up call for me when I started to get sick in my early years as a mother was remembering, you know, that phrase that we hear the flight attendant speaking: put your own oxygen mask on first if you want to save your kids. And I really understood that if I wanted to save my kids, I had to save myself. And that's what launched my own very, very serious practice, not just in self-care, but an exceptional level of self-care.
Well, I know that a lot of us have mothers who were nurturers. That's what mothers do. And so we look to that as our first example. And I think a lot of times we make ourselves feel like we're falling short because we try to keep up with what we were raised with or the expectations, as I said before. So yeah, the exceptional self-care is what we need to work on. So stay with us, because when we come back, we're going to let you know the tips to having exceptional self-care. Welcome back to The Girls. If you're just joining us, our guest today is Dr. Christine. She is going to teach us how to have exceptional self-care for everybody who is a multitasker, forgets to take care of yourself. We're absolutely going to teach you how to do that today, and you'll be able to get some more information how you'd be able to reach Christine herself so that you could get additional information. So during the break, we were chatting a little bit, and you guys started a great conversation. So I want you to ask her again what you had begun talking about eating. We forget to eat.
We do forget to eat. I know myself, you know, I'm busy at work. My profession is caring for others. So it's not only in my personal life, it's in my professional life. And I get busy, and I forget to eat. And, you know, I'll have friends who say, what do you mean you forgot to eat? I'm like, well, I was just busy, so I didn't think about it. I ran out the door. My daughter had breakfast, and I know my husband had something for lunch, but I often forget to do that. I make sure dinner's prepared, and I'm sure that, you know, plays a part in why you get fatigued and aren't up to your best, because we need to fuel our body. So how does that affect us? Is that part of it?
What I find fascinating about what you said is that one of the ways that women nurture is through food, and we're masterful at feeding others. It's a form of nourishment and nurturing, and yet we forget ourselves. So yes, not eating properly, or realizing I didn't eat and then just grabbing whatever it is that we can grab is not always you know, a way of nourishing yourself in the way that you might nourish others. And so one of the physical practices that became very important for me is a version of what we call mindful eating. First, it's remembering to eat, but second, it's remembering this. When the plate of food is in front of me, or if I'm grabbing for something, I take it in my hand. If I have a plate of food, I might actually place my hands near the food. And I say to myself, is what I'm about to put into my body going to heal or harm me? That question, will this do harm or will this heal, really helps to set you on a very good track when it comes to nourishing yourself and nurturing yourself physically. That one question can change everything.
Because so many people are emotional eaters. And so
Yes.
people eat if they're happy, if they're depressed, if they're tired, if they're lonely, if they're watching TV where there's food on every station.
Right.
And so you don't know if your craving is for real, if you're really, really hungry, or sometimes we're just thirsty or tired. But doing what you said, that mindful eating.
Absolutely,
is so
and that is
important.
one of the reasons when I talked earlier about what are some of the signs of I'm not taking care of myself. Sometimes it's the weight gain. We don't know where it came from. We're not understanding why it's happening, and it's often linked to the stress response, and which is linked to just grabbing whatever we can grab or feeding ourselves, feeding our emotional selves. If I'm emotionally eating, I'm nurturing a part of myself that's not been nurtured, which is my emotions, but I'm not doing it in a way that's going to really benefit me. So that one question, is what I'm about to ingest going to do harm, or is it going to heal?
That's really wonderful. And I'm just thinking about it, because I often do just grab whatever. When I do get hungry, I'm like, oh, there's a cupcake, let me just eat that. So that's perfect. I will put that to practice myself because, of course, I think that's important. I pride myself in making sure my family has a healthy meal.
Exactly. How many things might a woman as a nurturer grab for herself that's not nutritionally grounded? And if you really stopped, you say, but I wouldn't feed this to my child.
Right.
I wouldn't feed this to a loved one. So will it do harm or will it create healing? That's just one tip. There are lots of things we can do physically, but that's just one of my favorite questions to ask that helps to keep me on a path, an exceptional path towards self-care when it comes to my physical body.
You mentioned earlier about how even when you're in public, there are certain things you could do that no one is really aware of.
Yeah.
That you can ground yourself mentally, I would imagine, emotionally.
Yeah.
So what other tip would that be?
Did you ever notice, and maybe you've noticed this in yourself and others, that when something happens that's kind of shocking, we as humans tend to go, oh my Lord, or oh my God, and we take our hands and we place them here. There's a reason that we do that. It's incredibly comforting to place your hands near your heart. So one of the practices that I have found that will help to bring you into a very grounded emotional state, especially when there's a lot of chaos going on around you, is to do this. And I'm going to ask you to do this. Okay. I want you to take your right hand and just place it over your heart. And then your left hand over the right, and just close your eyes. And I just want you to know that beneath this right hand is the beating of your physical heart, which is a mystery, and it's a wonder, and it's magnificent, and it's your life force. And that beneath this hand is your emotional heart, which loves and feels and lives and embraces all that's good. And that this heart is your home. And so regardless of the chaos swirling around me, I can always come home just like this. Take a deep breath in and open your eyes. So, I'm in a crowded airport. There's a lot of chaos swirling around me. I'm afraid I'm going to miss my flight. Now, do I have to close my eyes and go through that whole, monologue? No. The mere act of just doing this will bring you right back into my physical heart is here. My emotional heart is here. This is my home. It's bringing yourself home. Detaching from this, everything that's going on that's external. Come home. That's why I went to the yoga mat. It didn't matter. I didn't have to do yoga on the yoga mat. I just had to come home to this one space and stand there. But this is a nice sort of portable replication of that.
Did you ever notice if anything is really going crazy in your life, you always look for the call mom, go home, like that. Home is your sanctuary, as my husband puts the word. My home is my sanctuary. And so if we have that safe spot physically in our lives, I guess you're telling us now how to have it emotionally within our safe home within ourselves.
Absolutely. And so you can be anywhere in the world and be home. Just call yourself back.
That's awesome. Really is awesome.
Did that feel good?
It felt good. I was almost thinking to myself, okay, who's going to do the rest of the show? I was getting so relaxed. I was just like in a whole state to say bye-bye.
I want to share.
Awesome.
Do I have time to share another
tool? You have
tool?
all the time you want.
This is a tool that is really, really important relationally, because often women don't take care of themselves in their relationships. And it's something called the Relationship Bill of Rights. It's a list of 25 rights that we as human beings own. They're our rights, but women in particular need to be reminded of the Bill of Rights. And I'm not going to read through all 25, but there are a few that I want to highlight. And just imagine if you lived by this right. I have the right to be treated with dignity and respect at all times. I have the right to say no and not feel guilty. No, it's a complete sentence. Most women will say no because they add a justification, a reason. No.
That's definitely me.
Period. I have the right to take time for myself. It's a right. I have the right to ask for what I want. Not asking for what we want causes so much suffering and stress. Right? I have the right to leave conversations with people who make me feel humiliated or less than who I am. I have the right to end those kinds of conversations
So
and walk
I don't
away.
have to take it.
You
So this
do
is the
not.
attitude, okay.
I have the right to feel scared and to say, I'm afraid, to people I love. I have the right to end a relationship. I have the right to not take responsibility for other people's actions, behaviors, and feelings. I have the right to be happy.
That's a biggie.
I believe at the moment of conception, every human being has that fundamental right, the right to be happy and the right to be at peace. And we forget that.
And it's funny because the actual Bill of Rights give us all of those things that we are entitled to as Americans. And as human beings, if we belong to a particular church or organization or whatever, we do have that self-worth. And I don't know if many people out there had it, but I was nurtured very well growing up, and I was told that I was loved, and I was shown that I was loved. So I didn't need a lot of emotional stimulation from others, but when we get out into the world and we start getting bombarded by different people and negative influences and hearing a lot of bad things, we just all of a sudden start thinking that we're not worthy. We're not worthy of it. We're not worthy of being happy. That's somewhere along the line, I guess, something is wrong that I'm not worthy.
And I think we forget sometimes too how to be happy because we're so used to, again, not doing that self-care for ourselves that we stomp that down and say, again, you're okay, so I'm fine. That my happiness is my child maybe being happy or my spouse or whatever. And you really forget that you're being miserable and sometimes other people around you see it and you just don't understand yourself that you're just not.
So two things about what you just said. One is, can you imagine what it might be like, especially as a girl, to grow up with these rights, that you looked at them every day and you demanded them of your life?
I'm going to write them on my wall.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I will send you a copy, and we can send the guests, anyone who's interested, who's watching, a
They'll
copy
be
of
on
the
our
Bill of
website.
Rights. And the quickest route to happiness, to going back to what makes you happy, is coming back to that notion of creativity. So, wonderful tool. I didn't know how I felt about these when they came out really, really hard, like in all of the stores, really big. The adult coloring books.
Oh,
yeah.
they're great.
Right. The adult coloring books, the act of coloring as an adult balances both sides of the brain. It brings you into almost an immediate state of calm because there's a part of it that reminds us of a time when we did give full expression to our creativity.
A very simple time, a very calm time, and a very time when
Absolutely, yeah.
we weren't in charge. We just were able to sit there and had no problems. Well, we could talk about this for about 3 more hours. So if you'd like some more information, you could get in touch with Dr. Christine Kiesinger, and she will be able to give you all the information that you need. If you'd like to have her speak at one of your organizations, have a one-on-one session. You do phone therapy as well, I understand?
I do.
So we'll have all the information on the girls page as well as what's on the screen. And as always, I tell you to make sure that you take care of yourself, especially on this show. You got some great tips. We'll see you next time on The Girls.